Welcome to Let Me Bend Your Ear podcast. My name is Frank. I am the host of this show. On this podcast, I discuss and review movies new and old. You can get this podcast wherever you listen to your podcast, so please click and subscribe. That'll help spread the exposure of the show. If you watch the show, you can watch it on YouTube, on X, and on Facebook. So if you watch it in the video form, if you don't mind, please subscribing there, especially if you listen on YouTube and X, you can get notifications when the show goes live. And of course, if you listen to the audio version, you'll get notifications when new episodes upload. If you want to help support the show financially, you can go to my X page, which is at Bend Your Ear Pod, and you can click on the tip jar there to help defray the cost of producing the show. All right, I'm going to get right into it. So today's episode, I'm going to discuss and review Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. So, of course, this is the end of a journey with Tom Cruise over 8 films, starting with Mission Impossible in 1995. I remember seeing the original film, back then. It was directed by Brian De Palma, and I do remember a lot of significant things regarding that movie. Obviously, they were taking hold of that great 60s, early 70s Mission Impossible television series with Peter Graves, with the IMF team. And then, of course, this is the first movie, at least in Tom Cruise's career, that was important to him because this is the first movie he actually produced. So he was more involved, of course, behind the scenes of the movie. Then obviously, as the movies progressed, it was almost basically, to me early on, like a kind of a James Bond type franchise. So basically, the subsequent movies had different directors. So the first movie was Brian De Palma. Second movie, Mission Impossible 2, John Woo, the great Hong Kong action director. The third film was directed by J.J. Abrams. The fourth film, Ghost Protocol, was directed by Brad Bird. And then from then on, you had Rogue Nation, Fallout, and Final Reckoning. I think I'm missing one there. But from after Ghost Protocol, the rest of the films have been directed by Christopher McQuarrie, who is a screenwriter director. He wrote the screenplay for the 90s classic, The Usual Suspects, if you remember that film, with its famous twist ending. But he's been basically a creative collaborator with Tom Cruise for these last 4 films, including this last one. They worked together on Valkyrie. He actually also assisted on Top Gun Maverick, which of course was the hit film from a couple of years back, the sequel to the original Top Gun. So they've become a creative duo with these movies. That's basically, I think, the only person he's really worked with for the most part, because he's been specifically working on these movies. I know he's got other films in the pipeline, but he's definitely basically worked with just Christopher McQuarrie. So The Final Reckoning picks up 2 months after the events of The Final Reckoning Part 1. So or Dead Reckoning Part 1, excuse me. So a couple of spoilers here. So if you've not seen the previous film, Dead Reckoning Part 1, stop this recording here, come back to it, go watch that first movie. I think it's streaming now on Paramount Plus, so you can watch it if you have that streaming service. But if you've seen the movie, obviously in Part 1, Ian and the IMF team are pursuing a key that unlocks the entity. So basically, the entity is identified in the previous film as a rogue AI that is looking to take control over all of the cyberspace on the entire planet. So obviously, that impacts everything: economies, missile defenses, everything that could, that's used throughout the world because of the use of technology. So the first film was his efforts to obtain that key, and then, of course, at the end of that film, he does obtain the key. You can look at my review of Dead Reckoning Part 1. I didn't pull the episode number, but if you look it up online, just type in Let Me Bend Your Ear, Dead Reckoning Part 1, you'll be able to get the episode. I may post it. Once I post this episode, I'll put the episode of the previous movie and my review of that film. So The Final Reckoning takes place 2 months after the events of the last movie. So Ethan has the key in his possession. He refuses to give it up because he doesn't want anyone else to have access to the entity. So as the film opens, Ethan is sent a message by the President of the United States, of course, again here played by Angela Bassett. So she is letting him know that the entity is still wreaking havoc around the world. And it's culminated in the point that basically right now that the entity step by step is knocking offline the nuclear missiles of certain countries, the big countries in the world. So Russia, China, Pakistan, India, the United Kingdom, the countries that have nuclear weapons, and one by one, they're coming offline because the entity's ultimate goal is to start a nuclear war. So Ethan is pressed back into service by the president to try to stop the entity. So, as was listed in the last movie, if you remember, the there was a Russian ship that was sunk. Basically, the entity caused the Russian sub, to believe that they were being attacked, and ended up as a result sinking itself, and obviously ending up at the bottom of the ocean. So Ethan and his team figure out that there's a way to stop the entity by installing basically a poison pill, a virus, whatever you want to call it, into the system to destroy it. And the only way to make that happen is to obtain a piece of technology that's located on that sub at the bottom of the ocean. So that's a simple way to do that. So you've got the same antagonist in the film, Gabriel, played by Isai Morales, who was in the last film as well. And obviously he gets away. So he's still trying to take control of the entity because he's, of course, angry from the last film. Uh, he was betrayed, he felt, and he wants to take over the entity and be in control of it. And obviously you have the other issue of what's going to happen if as these countries go offline. Are any of these countries going to, why they still have their weapons online? And that's the main thrust of what America's decision is in this movie is they're still online. The countries are starting to go offline as the movie progresses. And does the United States allow itself to go offline, or do they launch a preemptive attack to minimize casualties? Of course, even by doing that, there's going to be millions and millions of people that are killed in a first strike nuclear attack, of course. So that's the dramatic thrust of the movie. And so Ethan and his team, obviously, he gets together back with his team with Benji, played by Simon Pegg. He also gets back with, of course, Ving Rhames as Luther, and Haley Atwell, the pickpocket thief that assisted him in the previous film. Then, of course, you have Palm Clementif, who was the French assassin who was betrayed by Gabriel in the previous film and becomes an ally in this film to try to kill Gabriel. Then, of course, one of my favorite things about the previous film was you had Henry Cersei as Eugene Kittredge. So it was great. He was the director of the IMF in the first Mission Impossible back in 1995. And one of the other things I loved about this Mission Impossible is obviously his character refers all the way back to the beginning. And there's a second character that they bring into this film that actually becomes a pretty major part of the movie that's also from the first movie, and basically a very small role in the first movie is expanded into a bigger part in this film. So if you remember the famous scene in Mission Impossible when he's coming down coming down with the cords trying to get into the computer, that's one of the famous scenes. He's hanging upside down and he just makes it out before the person that's working that room comes back in. But if you remember, Ethan drops his knife and the knife sticks onto the table. It's one of the, iconic visuals from the original Mission Impossible. So the character in that movie, who was in the movie for a couple of minutes, I mean, he wasn't a major character in the first movie. It's almost a toss aside. Is back in this film. He ends up being posted in Alaska because of what happened there. His character is sent to Alaska, where he's been, or in the North Pole area, where he's been there at a station the rest of his career. So they bring that character back, and he actually becomes a pivotal part of the third act of the movie. So that was really cool as well to see his character come back. And I forgot his name. I didn't look it up here, but I think it's Donlin, if I remember right. And I'll pull it up here as I'm talking. But that was a really cool callback. The other really cool callback to Mission Impossible 3. So if you remember Mission Impossible 3, you have the great villain turn by Philip Seymour Hoffman. And if you remember that movie, he blackmails Ethan to get what's called the rabbit's foot. So his girl is not murdered. So the rabbit's foot is revealed in this movie as the source of starting the entity. So the AI that's rogue now. So basically, kind of working on that theme of, the decisions that you make and the consequences of those decisions. So basically, Gabriel informs Ethan that had you not gotten that rabbit's foot and what had happened not happened, there would not be any entity. So basically, tries to put the blame on him for this whole thing becoming what it is. So I thought that was a cool callback to Mission Impossible 3 as well. So that's essentially the plot of the movie. So of course the movie is basically a runaway train ride to the end. These movies have a formula that's worked. Like these Mission Impossible movies have been a lot of fun to watch. Action, obviously the incredible stunts that Tom Cruise performs. The movies have been fantastic, and the last movie was great as well. Now in this film, there are two huge set pieces that highlight the film, and you've seen probably them in the trailer. But there's a underwater sequence in the middle of the film because that's Ethan getting down to the submarine to obtain the piece of hardware he needs to sabotage and destroy the entity. So that's a pretty lengthy set piece in the middle of the film. So obviously, if you've read anything about it, he's performed the stunts himself in this, the underwater work and stuff, and it's very impressive. It's unbelievable. It's an unbelievable scene in the middle of the film. And then towards the end of the film, there is a biplane chase. So you have Gabriel in one plane, Ethan in the other plane, and it's a dogfight / chase / incredible stunt work. So those two sequences highlight the movie. So those are the things I liked about it. Again, obviously the cast is great. Tom Cruise plays this role in his sleep. He loves doing it. You can tell he enjoys it, and it's fantastic. So I definitely liked all those aspects of the film. Now, the main issue I had with this movie is the action set pieces. The two major action set pieces are fantastic. But as I was watching the movie, I enjoyed it very much. It's fun. It's a great summer movie. My issue with the movie is I don't think from an action perspective, it's as good as the previous film, Dead Reckoning Part 1. So if you listen to my review of Dead Reckoning Part 1, it's nonstop action from beginning to end. It's nonstop. Here, it's not nonstop. And this is not to say that the movie is boring or not interesting to watch, but it really, I thought for me in this movie, the biggest difference in this movie is there seemed to be more downtime than action. Again, I wasn't bored, but I did notice it in comparing it with its predecessor. So to me, that was something that I did notice that is a criticism of the film. And to back up, the CIA analyst from the first movie is William Donloe. So that's the character that they bring back in this film as well. And he ends up assisting the team as they try to execute this plan of destroying Entity. So it was great to see him back. Ralph Saxon is the actor. There we go. So it was really cool that they, like I said, the tie-ins to the first movie, the tie-ins to the third movie, and were fantastic. And again, this is a wrap up of the series. This is supposedly Tom Cruise's last performance as Ethan Hunt. This is supposedly the last Mission Impossible movie. It seems like it's going to be, but you never know. So it's great that they were kind of wrapping things up. And I enjoyed that about the movie. Like I said, my main criticism of the movie is, like I said, the action set pieces, the two main ones, while fantastic, I just didn't think there was enough action propelling the story. And like I said, these films are done so well, and I think I have a very high standard, and especially coming off the last movie, which was phenomenal, which is very, very good. My standard of these are very, very high. So like I said, my critique of the film is a slight critique. I think, and like I said, It's weird because, like I said, I didn't find myself bored per se, but I think that being said, the movie clocks in at 2 hours and 49 minutes. So, hitting 3 hours. I think probably this could have come in at 2.5. So maybe knock out 20 minutes. But again, I don't want to give the impression that the movie bored me at any time. It just didn't. I just noticed the momentum slowing down. So that's probably a better way to put it. I wasn't bored. I wasn't looking at my watch. I wasn't disengaged from the movie because, like I said, there's you have the acting, you have the set pieces that are fantastic, so it keeps you engaged. I wasn't disengaged from the movie. I just noticed that it would build momentum and then kind of slow and then build momentum again. Whereas I said the previous movie, if you when you watch it, if you do, and if you've already seen it, it's just movie starts, it's nonstop action. It's action set piece after action set piece, boom, 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 all the way to the end. So that was the biggest difference I found between part one and this one. So again, it's a slight criticism, but a criticism nonetheless. I think other people, will see this movie and probably disagree with me wholeheartedly, which is fine. Like I said, the movie is great to watch. I enjoyed it very much. But again, that's really my only criticism of the movie. Like I said, everything else about the movie is great. I mean, you come in, if you're a fan of Tom Cruise, if you're a fan of the Mission Impossible series, I mean, you're already coming in excited to see how they wrap it all up. So that part of it is really what sustains the whole movie. Is you're knowing this is the last one, and the thing that I think most people appreciate about Tom Cruise is he's going to pull out all the stops to try to make this movie entertaining, and you can see it in this movie as well. And like I said, my slight criticism aside, I think for the most part, overwhelmingly, he succeeds in that regard. It's still a very enjoyable movie. It's a fun popcorn thrill ride. Some of the other reviews I've read regarding the film, even in the positive reviews, is that the story is preposterous. And I'm not going to disagree with that. Some of the plot with the entity and what it does, what it's able to do, how people react to it. Some of it is preposterous, but again, this is not a documentary. It's one of my movies. I always tell my wife loves is Armageddon. That's one of the most preposterous movies ever. She loves it. I'm not as huge a fan of it, but I don't have a problem with it. I mean, I guess I do have a problem with it being somewhat preposterous. But again, you have to have, it's a big summer popcorn movie. You're not looking for deep, realistic dramas in a summer movie. You're looking for a fun, big action set pieces, exciting popcorn movie. And this movie, as all the other Mission Impossible movies do, they deliver. It delivers in spades on that. So again, I liked it a lot. Like I said, my one minor criticism of the film, is what I've stated regarding momentum. So based on that, I'm going to go ahead and give Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. I'm going to give it 4 stars out of 5. So on that scale, I would definitely watch it again. Of course, if you're a fan of Tom Cruise, and of course, if you're a fan of these movies, you're going to want to see it in the movies, and you're going to want to check out to see how the story ends. So obviously, I highly recommend it on that regard. And like I said, my criticism is a minor one. Nothing to keep you from seeing the movie in the theaters. And like I said, I would definitely watch the film again. And now that it's out, once it hits streaming later this year or whenever it comes out, that's a good back-to-backer to watch the first one right into the second one. It's a fantastic 1-2 punch. And again, Tom Cruise is outdone himself, and all the positive press he receives for his love of making movies, his and more specifically for me, his championing of movies in the theater, getting people out to watch the movies. And like he did in Top Gun Maverick, and when this movie came out as well, when he comes out before the movie starts, there's a short 30-second, 45-second message to the audience directly from him. And I'm sure some people will find that cheesy or whatever. I don't really care. The fact that he takes that time to thank the audience for coming out to the movies, and appreciates why he's doing what he's doing, I have no issue with that, and I appreciate that. And I think a lot of other actors / movie stars could take a cue from him on his passion for the movies. I know people may have issues with him in his personal life or his personal beliefs. That's fine. You're entitled to your opinion on that. But to this conversation, it's not really relevant to me. What I respect is his respect for the audience and wanting to entertain the audience. And I think that's fantastic. And make no mistake, post COVID, the theater business was in jeopardy. And Tom Cruise's insistence on not releasing Top Gun Maverick on streaming and waiting till the movie theaters were open enough to release that film was monumental in keeping movie theaters open. And Steven Spielberg himself basically said it. He quoted, he's like, look, this dude, he saved the movies. And that is not hyperbole. I don't know what happens if Top Gun ever comes out in the theaters, and it's only, who knows. But him, and I would put Christopher Nolan there too. Tom Cruise is on a bigger scale, but definitely Christopher Nolan with Tenet, even though Tenet's not one of my favorite Nolan films. The fact of the matter is he fought a battle to make sure Tenet came out in theaters. And this was in the height of the pandemic. I saw Tenet in a theater, probably with 3 other people. And he used his power to make sure that movie got released in the theaters. And that's part of the reason why the movie probably didn't do as well as it. Well, I'm sure of the fact that it didn't do as well as it could have had the movie theaters been completely open. And the fact that Nolan's next film, Oppenheimer, was a smash hit critically and commercially, good on him. That's good karma for championing the movie theater experience. Like I've said on this podcast a bunch of times before, I have no issue with streaming movies. I watch movies on streaming. It's convenient. I have no question about that. People are watching them that way. My issue, not even issue, the problem I think with streaming is a lot of these streaming movies are not very good. That's my bigger problem. I just watched Havoc with Tom Hardy. I'll review that for an upcoming episode. But just these movies are not great, unfortunately. I don't know why that is. I don't know. It's unfortunate because I want the movies anywhere I see them to be fantastic. I'm always rooting for a movie to be great. And more importantly, I'm always looking for a movie that maybe I'm not so sure how it's going to be, surprises me, and is great. That's one of my favorite types of movies to watch, a movie that completely blindsides me and surprises me in how much I like it, how good it is, or coming in, I didn't think that either one would be true. So it's always my favorite 2 things about movies. But again, Tom Cruise's impact on the movie industry is undisputed, and I appreciate that effort he puts into it. So again, I'm going to give Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning 4 stars out of 5. So definitely check it out. Obviously, it's playing in theaters now. That definitely I would recommend seeing it on a big screen. It's the visuals in the movie, as always, are fantastic. So you'll definitely enjoy it if you're a fan of Cruise and a fan of this series of movies. All right. So again, thank you for watching and listening. Again, this is the Let Me Bend Your Ear podcast, where I discuss and review movies new and old. You can listen to this podcast wherever you get podcasts. Again, I would ask that you rate and review and subscribe on wherever you listen to this podcast. And I also would ask that you subscribe to the YouTube channel so you'll get live notifications when the show goes live. And of course, I'm trying to build the subscriber base, so please help me with that so the podcast gets more love and gets more views out there. So if you can do that, I'd appreciate it. If you're able to financially support the show, I would appreciate that as well. You can go to my X page again, at Bend Your Ear Pod, click on the tip jar, and you can give right there. And again, if you want to interact with me, the email is bendyourearpodcast@gmail.com. And you can interact with me on X. I'm always on X talking movies with people. You can DM me. You can send me a post, and I'll definitely engage that way as well. So again, I want to thank everybody for listening and everybody for